Hi, I'm a beneficiary and I was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder when I was in my 30s and I'm 48 now, and it's been quite a journey to get to where I am today. Um, I just want to give you guys a brief outlay of who I am. I'm not a diagnosis, like I'm a real person, but because of my diagnosis, living in New Zealand, it qualifies me for a special benefit. So in New Zealand, we have a um, we have a unemployment benefit. We have a sickness benefit. We have a domestic purposes benefit, and we have a supported living benefit. um, I qualify for the supported living benefit, and I've been on the supported living benefit for nearly 14 years. And what that means is I don't have to work. I don't have to get a full-time job. Um, my diagnosis says that my moods may compromise the safety of the employees, the employer, and myself. Therefore, I I'm I'm not able to function in a work environment. Um, I have been um, bipolar affective disorder all of my life. I can see myself behaving in certain ways as a child growing up. I understand my behavior now. I was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder in 2004. I realized there was something not quite right about my moods, about the relationship I was in, about how I was behaving. Elevated, um, and then what I call stable, but the psychiatrists and psychologists will say that I was below the um, medium of stable. So, just to give you some historical insight in what bipolar affective disorder is, it used to be categorized as manic depression. Now, they've done a lot of work within the mental health diagnostic society. There are doctors and nurses out there that dedicate their lives to understanding people with mental health disorders. And I've met a lot of them. I've been right to the top of uh, psychosis analysis. We have an institution here in New Zealand, and that's based in Dunedin. It's the one place I haven't been. sent to. I did some time in 2005 in remand, 11 and a half months in Mangaro prison here in New Zealand. That was due to a manic episode, and that was the last time that I was based in a living long-term relationship. I have two daughters, and they've mostly been raised by their mother in the town that we were both brought up in. And my parents and my family have assisted their mother in raising my children, as I have lived an hour away in a different city, going through a recovery journey. I'm not much at writing things down, but I do have time to sit here in front of a camera and try to explain to you all my journey as a mental health patient, first of all. But what you need to understand is, once we receive our diagnosis, our illness, we are 90% well. So the idea out there that once you have a mental health diagnosis, you're that now, which is not true. You were that before you knew what your mental health diagnosis was. If your mental health diagnosis was depression, before they told you you had depression, you were depressed. Once they told you that you had depression, you became a part of your own recovery journey. Because you know what's wrong with you now. And it's for no one else to say. For you to know that is power. Power over yourself and self-control over yourself. They will explain to you what it means and entails as far as medication goes. But there's one thing that you need to understand and remember, that once you start receiving medication, no matter what your diagnosis, if you decide to stop taking that medication, you become unwell again. If you think for yourself and you decide for yourself that one day you're going to stop taking your medication because you think you're well enough, you will fall back under, because it's that medication that's keeping you well enough and it's telling you that you're well enough. But as soon as you stop taking it, you're not well enough. I went to a top psychiatrist in the country at a hospital called Purehurehu in Wellington, Porirua. Used to be called Porirua Hospital. Now it's called Purehurehu Forensic Science Nursing Ward. I was there for 2 weeks, I think, maybe 3. And then a total of 5 weeks, because I spent 2 weeks in Rimataka prison, health wing. Now the reason why they sent me to Rimataka was because the man, Dr. Jeremy Skipworth, was assigned to Rimataka, and Dr. Jeremy Skipworth was at the time the country's top psychiatrist. And it's based in Rimutaka because a lot of the hard cases, a lot of the hard criminals, murderers, real hard criminals, go to Rimutaka prison. It's such a hard-based criminal that just recently one of the doctors, one of the nurses, was found out, and some of the staff for trafficking methamphetamine and other types of paraphernalia in and out of Rimutaka prison. So that's how persuasive these criminals are. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're saying. They know exactly how to get what they want out of the people that they're asking to do and get it from. I was there for 2 weeks, and I was being assessed by Dr. Jeremy Skipworth while I was in there. After that assessment, following that assessment, I was sent back to Purihurihu. Rimutaka is in Upper Hutt, Wellington. Purihurihu is in Porirua, Wellington. So it's just a matter of travelling to different suburbs of the same city. The whole process was to try and determine whether I was sane or not. Sane enough and fit enough to stand trial for the charges that the police had brought up against me. They were character destroying charges. I can tell you that right now. And not to try and put you off me. My charges at the time were unlawful sexual contact, female over 16. This was the mother of my children. I'm not going to go into how they mistook what was happening for what they charged me with, but eventually I was found not guilty. And the mother of my children herself was at the High Court hearing for the trial, and she herself testified that I was not guilty of those charges. And there we split. We haven't been together since it's now 2022. My journey has taken me from being a transient in and out of boarding houses. I actually went back to prison in 2010, did 4.5 months. I was supposed to do 3 years. But because I was found not guilty in 2005, when I went back there in 2010, they struck everything but 4.5 months off my time as time served. Through that whole time, from the time I was released in 2005 to about 2015, was as long as it took for us, and when I say us, I mean myself, the psychiatrists, the forensic nurses, the key workers, the mental health key workers, the DAMs, the duly authorised officers, the district mental health inspectors. We were trying to find the right dose of the medication that I was prescribed. It was hard. It was the hardest time we've all had, and it's the hardest time that these people have with their mental health patients, to try and get them to a stable position where they can advance with their lives. Dr. Anthony Duncan was the top head psychiatrist at Purihurihu, and he seconded his diagnosis and opinion of me and assessment of me with Dr. Jeremy Skipworth. So those two doctors, and Dr. Jeremy Skipworth took over from Dr. Anthony Duncan when he resigned from the top job in the country. So, 1 and 2. I was seen by both of them and was found sane, fit to stand trial. But from there, I'm prescribed, for all you people that might want to know, I'm prescribed Epilim and quetiapine, also known as Seroquel, from the word tranquility. It's an antipsychotic, but its base is a tranquilizer. Epilim is a mood stabilizer, but it's also used in epileptics. I take other types of medication, but it's got nothing to do with my diagnosis as bipolar. Those are the only two primary medications that I take for my chemical imbalance. My doctor said to me, or Dr. Anthony Duncan said to me, as long as you're smoking cannabis, you're not going to get well. It's going to always compete with your medication, and he said something else. Yeah, chemical imbalance in your brain. You've got a chemical imbalance in your brain, and as long as you're smoking cannabis, you're not going to get better. So half of that journey was me stopping smoking marijuana, and I was an everyday smoker. I was a $60 a week customer. I even went to $140 a week customer. It's a foil, 20 gram, a gram a day. I met my dealer down the street one day after I'd converted and been baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And just to cut a story short, he was not happy. He'd lost $140 a week. So you can just imagine that once I'd come clean, he still tried to have a go at me, try to make me feel guilty about the decision I'd made in my life. And best to say that every time that I've seen him since, there hasn't been any words between us. So that's gone. When I was first prescribed quetiapine, I was given 25 megs. 25 megs left me zombified on the couch for 3 hours in the morning, to the point where I couldn't get my daughter ready for school, where she had to get her sister ready for kohanga, which is kindergarten in your other countries. And I just felt so useless and disappointed within myself that I couldn't even get my daughter ready for school. But I had to take this medication as first thing in the morning as soon as I got up. I'm on 200 megs now. At night, and I'm on 100 megs in the morning, and I'm hardly phased by it. This is, well, it's 17 years later. So I went through a stage where I had to self-medicate. Now, the strength in me for self-medicating became obvious and apparent because I had to decide what was too much. And I believe it got to the point where I could have even conked out. Now, conked out meaning that one day I could have accidentally overdosed and never woke up. Now, that would have been seen by the doctors and the larger public as suicide. I would have overdosed. But in my defense, it would have been because I had just believed that I could have used one more tab and never woke up. But thank goodness I did. Self-medicating, the process of self-medicating is a very, very dangerous stage of finding the right level of medication for you or for whoever the patient is. And you've got to be open and honest, because it got to the point where I was sleeping 18 hours of the day. I mean like a log. And I mean every day. So through that process, it became obvious to me that I was over-medicating, and I had to go back to the doctor and say, look, I can't be held responsible for my own medication regime now. You've got to make a decision. I'm taking this much medication a day and I'm sleeping 18 hours a day every day. And there's something not right with that. So they took that information and they based it on what they prescribed me at first, and then adjusted it to the right levels, to the point where they're so good at it that in an employment situation, because I have tried to go back to work in the last 3-4 years, in an employment situation, they're dropping an extra 25 megs antipsychotics in there, because I'm working around people, and that dynamics, that interaction with other people in a workplace can really be high octane. I've come close to brawls, come close to all our fights, just because of the way I am, because of the way they are, and the way I strike people in the wrong way. So effectively, it was best for me to not go back to work. But in saying that, yeah, it was probably better that I didn't go back, and that I ended up back on the supported living benefit. Now, we're lucky in this country to have such a system that looks after our people like me. I In the time that I did go back to work, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking cigarettes, I wasn't doing drugs, I wasn't drinking coffee, and I wasn't drinking tea. So I was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm quite happy a member. Have been for 6, maybe going 7 years now. Giving up those substances has allowed me to stabilize in my moods. Not as much as getting along with other people. I think that's a challenge for everyone, regardless of their mental health status. So my dynamics, if supported by the right management structure, I could be quite able to hold a position of authority within the workplace. But without that work forced workplace management structure supporting me. I just come across as a loudmouth employee that thinks he knows better. Um, During the time I was working, I managed to get myself a couple of vehicles, and I'm struggling through ACC at the moment, which is Accident Compensation Corporation, which is another insurance policy that we all pay levies into through our tax deductions. So it's like a government employment accident compensation insurance company. If you don't have a private insurance company, or if your workplace employer doesn't have an accident compensation company, it directly gets passed on to ACC, and ACC takes it on. And they pay 80% of your wages while you're off work recovering, or if it's of such a degree you're not going to go back to work again, then they pay you for the rest of your life, I think. And for loss of use of whatever limb or part of your body. So not only do I have my psychosis, mental health diagnosis, I have an injury. I injured myself in 2001. I did a heavy lifting um, sprain on my back. I sprained my lower lumbar fifth vertebrae and caused nerve damage. I went to pull therapy straight after that for about 4 months, and I gradually got back to being stronger. I'd never taken a day off work because of my back for a long time. I just carried on life normal. My back was normal. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, and when it was bad, I just didn't go to work or wasn't working because I was under a diagnosis regime. How is this helpful for you people out there to know this about me? There seems to be a lot of emphasis on mental health these days, and I like to try and explain what it's been like for me, because there's a lot of people falling off out there. There's a lot of people falling through the cracks out there. There's a lot of parents out there asking questions, lost their children to suicide because of mental health problems. How am I dealing with it? It's easy to say when you're looking back that you've made all the right moves to get to where you are in life. Listening is key. If you rely on your own understanding, it's a real tough one. I've trusted and I've put trust into the doctors that I've seen. I've appreciated the nurses that have helped try to pull me through. I understand that even if I'm misbehaving and behaving badly, that they are genuinely there to try and help me. And it's that love and compassion in my heart and understanding that has helped me listen. Listen to them. These are people that don't have any mental health psychosis assessment diagnoses. Legally within the community, certified mentally healthy. They can do anything in their lives. They can choose to be a jet plane pilot. They can drive cranes on the wharf. They can be a taxi driver in Auckland. They can be a musical instrumentalist. They can be a singer in a band. But they choose to go to university, study mental health, study nursing, and this is years. This is years and years and years of effort, of training, of understanding, and people they take it further. They become doctors. They get their PhDs, and they right well out into the community, and we're going to help some people. Some take it further. They go to professor. But they're doing that because they want to help you, people like me. They're not doing that for themselves. They have this drive in them. And I don't. Personally, if you're asking me if I've got the care in my heart to want to go out there and help people like that, dedicate years and years and years of my life and study, reading a novel gives me a headache. So no, it's not in me to want to have to do that. You think there are people out there to come by these kinds of people are a dime a dozen? It's not. They are special people. To care about you that much, to care about you enough to do that, to dedicate their time and life to helping people like me and you out. They are special people. Special people. They might not be religious, they might not be godly, they might not be Jesus Christ-like. But they are special people because they want to help. And they study and they study and they study and they read and they read and they read until they've got that certificate that says they have the right to help you. And they're there. They turn up. They're standing right beside the police. I've been taken to the cells down the city. I know them by their first names now. Bill, Rose from the psychiatric assessment triage team up the hospital. Oh, we've got Isaac in here again. They know me by first name. Well, they did. It's been 12 years. They might have forgotten my name by there. Hallelujah if they have. But they all used to know me first name. Me, you parents out there that, you're knocking your head against the wall, you're wondering, you're trying to think, does anybody really care? Yes. Yes. But you know what makes it hard? The very few successes they can write home about. It's called relapse. I might just be one of the only success stories that the police force in Gisborne, the nursing fraternity in Gisborne, the psychiatric assessment triage team in Gisborne, the mental health team in Gisborne, the justice system in Gisborne. I might be the only success story out there for them to think about. And they can't go around saying, oh yeah, he's our number one. If you want an example on how to get through it all, he's our man. He's the reason why we still get up and go to work in the morning. Because he's our success story. They can't afford to do that. Can't afford to put that pressure on someone. Put all their values and effort into one person. And they gotta walk away from it. Walk away from it like they never saw it. Where were my parents in all of this? My father has since passed away. He died about 2 years ago. But they were there in the background. They never came to visit me at hospital. They never came to visit me in prison. They hardly ever dropped in to say hello, even when they're passing by into Gisborne here, into the same city. I live an hour away from the town that I was brought up in. They came here. My brother comes for McDonald's because they don't have McDonald's in the town. My children might have been in and out past Gisborne, drive straight past me and go home and don't even call them to see me. Does that mean they're not there? No. They've always been there. They've always been there. They just haven't been physically there. I guess you know your own child. I guess you know your own child. Because you know when they need you, you know when you can back off. You know when you can have to stand firm. I've done a lot to help myself, but I've had a lot of help to help myself as well. I pray. I'm an active prayer. I believe in God. I always have. It's not something that just struck me one day. I was brought up in the faith on a foundation of Jesus Christ. And later on, I moved that up to the major leagues and took on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Why I say it's the major leagues, because it presents a commitment that most people fall off the idea of, the thought of. No more alcohol, no more cigarettes, no more drugs, no more coffee, no more tea. Now, you might look at those first three, alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes, and say, yeah, well, I don't do those anyway. Do you realize how hard it is to give up coffee and tea? Real hard for some people. Some people can't start the day without it. That's how addictive it is. It is a drug. I don't know. I didn't know what I don't know if I'm going to say the word right. I think it's a tokumatsu pie. It's a dessert, like a cheesecake, like a Bavarian cake, Bavarian pie. Anyway, I bought one day, and I hadn't tasted coffee 4 or 5 years. And I ate this pie, and it was coffee, and it was yuck, but it was nice at the same time, just like coffee is. It's always been yuck, but tolerable. Anyhow, I threw up that night, and I swear to God, it was just the coffee content that I was throwing up. My body rejected it like it was the most horrible substance. And once I had purged my body of that ingredient, I'll never go back to tasting coffee again. I just realised how much of a horrible, ugly thing it is. And if you were to be honest to yourself, alcohol, for the sake of tasting alcohol and the taste of alcohol, is horrible. It does actually taste like poison. I know now why the old people used to call it poison. Because it tastes like poison. And it is poison. But that's why I call it the major leagues. When you decide to join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and become baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and take on the words of wisdom, no alcohol, no drugs, no cigarettes, no coffee, no tea, you're playing big, hard league major ball for your soul to return to heaven. It's how much effort you're putting in to your religious structure and foundation. So, I don't care what you do. You don't have to listen to me and carry on drinking coffee all you want. I really don't give a stuff. What you do is what you do. I'm just telling you, it's a drug. It's poison, and it, I know for a fact. And my body immediately tried to purge itself of that substance after being 4 or 5 years off it. Now, I used to drink coffee every day too. I used to love it. You're in a society of dependency. You depend on your friends to come over and drink your coffee because you've got a cafe, and every time they have a meeting or a gathering over their place, you turn up because you pay in likeness. You're dependent on them, they're dependent on you, and same as cigarettes. When you haven't got cigarettes, you ask your mate for a cigarette, they give you a cigarette, and when you've got cigarettes and they haven't got cigarettes, they ask you for a cigarette, you give them a cigarette. Shout you a beer, bro. Yeah, bro. I'll buy us a box tonight, yeah. You know, that sort of stuff. Dependency. It's not just the fact that you go down to the supermarket and buy your groceries instead of catching a fish down the beach. I've said it before. You know, I can think back to the times when I had very little money and I was eating 80, $100 fish, crayfish. On my poorest days, I just go out to the ocean. I'll be ripping crayfish out from underneath the rocks. 3, 4 days in a feed, whole crayfishes. Now, there's a world of dependency out there, and not that I'm some psycho crazy, but for the effect that it's had on the world, I think COVID is the most best thing that's ever happened to the world, including the death rate. I'm sorry if you've lost someone to COVID, but the world is overpopulated. And they're doing stupid things with the food, putting use by dates on them, throwing them out after a certain date. Uh, we feed pigs and we collect, well, not I do, but my parents have always raised pigs. And we collect the past use by date foods from the supermarket to feed to the pigs. And a lot of that stuff is still good. Meat used to be bags, rubbish bags, and rubbish bags of whole pork roasts, whole sirloin, rump sirloins, beef steaks, rump steaks, mushrooms, onions, lettuce, tomatoes, kiwi fruit, onions, are just everything. And during the time of COVID, right down to the last 6 8 months, the amount of waste coming out of supermarkets has dropped dramatically. From what it used to be pre-COVID, the amount of waste that comes out of a supermarket these days is nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Sometimes we're even struggling to get enough food to feed the pigs, and there's about 8, 9 pigs. About 7 of those will be little piglets being raised up, fattened up. And we're struggling to feed those pigs now. They've really tightened up the management structure within supermarkets. Are nowhere near as lenient as they used to be. Nowhere near as lenient as they used to be. And it's a funny way to find things out, being on the outside, on the dumpster side of life, to find out, hey, these people have figured something out and they're wasting their waste percentages were just astronomical. I do things to occupy my time. I'm not just a mental health diagnosis. I get into art. I build things. I take unwanted pellets, I deconstruct them, and I make things out of them. Shelves, I make planter boxes, I make um, shoe racks, I make rabbit hutches, I make um, toys, wooden toys, I make swords, I make knives, drumsticks, I make chainsaw carving. I've got two chainsaws. This is how I occupy my time when I'm fit and well and my back isn't hurting me. I've got a Dremel. I do carving. I do bone work, bone carvings. I do wood carvings. I've got a pyrography machine, so I get into wood burning artwork. I've got a Jeep Wrangler Sports Extreme, so I go fishing, I go diving. I've got a dog. We go hunting sometimes. I've got a Ninja Kawasaki 650, and I go for rides on that sometimes. I've got a whole lot of Xbox 360 games. I've got the first 2, 4, 6, 7 editions of Assassin's Creed. I've got 3 Ghost Recon. I've got 1 and 2 Sniper Ghost Warrior. I've got several Halo games. I've got 3, 4 Gears of War. I've got Flashpoint Recon, Tenchu Z, Star Wars The Force 1 and 2. I've got Battle Stations Pacific. I've got Self Defense. I've got Adventures Connect. And I've got Dark Zero and CSI Xbox 360 games. But I'm not an addict to it. I just love looking at the cases now because what I used to spend on drugs and alcohol, I've spent on these types of hobbies and activities, and I'm quite good at them. I've got one online game that I'd like to start promoting, and that's War Robots. It's a free platform, and yeah, I'll get into screening that as soon as I am technology savvy. I like music. I like all sorts of music. I play the guitar, so sometimes I might play a song or two for you. Sometimes we might get into some artwork, we might get into some fishing, we might get into some hunting. There's a world of things that I can show you that I get into, but I'm not always going to be 100% fit because I've got this injury that I'm carrying from ACC. And just to finish off, I want to try and tell you that in the coming weeks, my life could change dramatically, or it could very much well stay the same. And although staying the same isn't too bad because I'm being looked after by the system, I will be possibly having to have my Ninja 650 repossessed because I just can't afford the payments anymore. I can afford to pay for my truck. I've got another 2-3 years on my truck, and I'll own that. And but sorry, sad to say, I think I'm going to lose my Ninja Kawasaki. So without being anti or upset or angry, if that day comes, I'll try and get that on my phone, on camera, and post it to you just to see how that went. It's going to be a hard, trying moment. I need 1,000 subscribers to activate my monetization account for YouTube. So if any of you can help me out by supporting me, you'll be helping support to put a little bit of extra coin into my pocket, help me get a few more art resources, maybe a few sinkers, a few hooks, a bit of petrol money to go out and do a bit of diving. I got a GoPro knockoff underwater camera, so I can get you some underwater images of catching crayfish and other types of seafood and sea urchins. Yeah, we can go bush. We can go hunting with my dog. I've got a crossbow, 205-pound crossbow, and I've got a Shadow 1000 slug gun. So we can go hunting for pigeons along the beach, halfway between here and Warrell. We can go hunting for big game deer, just as long as we've got the petrol money. So as long as I've got supporters out there that can help monetize my YouTube account, we can be out there activating some awesome adventures. And even now and then, I may just be allowed to or be able to, with the permission of the church, post some church events. I'm real right into my church. I love the foundation of Jesus Christ. I understand the sacrifice and everything about Jesus Christ. The latest lesson that I've learned about Jesus Christ that I want to share with you is that Jesus was a Nazarene. So what that means is that he lived a life that was, the Mormon of the day, was superimposed Christian. Another Nazarene was Samson and Delilah, and when they cut his hair, he lost his power and his strength, but he was able to summon one last effort to bring down the temple pillars. But he was practically a dead man. They'd burnt his eyes out and cut his hair and shaved them off and shamed him out and embarrassed him, and left him with no real choice but to take extreme measures into hand. So the idea that Samson's strength came from his hair is a culture expectation of a Nazarene, and that's why Jesus Christ had long hair, because he practiced that discipline. There's different sects of religion, there's different types of religious factions, and Jesus Christ was a Nazarene. And the Nazarenes were the epitome of righteousness, of goodness, of do the things right and you get the good out of it type of person, which is probably the reason why he understood faith and how to heal by faith and rose all the people that he knew by faith and did all of that work, because he lived the life of a Nazarene. I need 4,000 views to activate my monetization for YouTube, my YouTube account. So I'm asking you all to subscribe. Please subscribe. I don't know how to do any of these fancy activation, point at the subscribe button, click now, computer whiz things. So I'm just going to roll with it, I reckon. If you enjoyed my post, please click the thumbs up and give it a like. If you want to ask me any questions about mental health and my journey through the mental health system, I've got no problem in answering questions. I know a lot of you parents are suffering out there and want to understand and know more and how to go about finding out more. It really is about educating yourself and trying to put your family member into a situation where they can learn more about themselves. Um, there are support networks out there. There are support networks out there, and they're not just people that have been to university that have learnt all these things and that are talking them down at them through a degree. There are services that are mental health people that have mental health diagnoses, that are managers, that are secretaries, that are receptionists, that are all sorts of different types of work, qualified people, and they carry these mental health diagnoses and they work in business um, services, mental health services for people that don't trust people with degrees and PhDs, that want to talk to people that have mental health diagnoses and are on medication themselves for problems that they live with every day. There are services like that out there. They're not easy to come by, but they're there. There's other services like the one that are helping me through my ACC, um, Wayfinders. You can find help in the most uncanny places we just weren't even thinking. Just weren't even thinking about it. For instance, one person, I was a lawyer and I approached them to help me with an unjustified dismissal case. She said that she couldn't help me with the unjustified dismissal case, but then she turned around and she says, "But I can help you with this." And that opened up another world of help for me that I can never really say enough words to show my appreciation for that person. To have, I was walking out the door. I'd given up. I passed up on all my hopes of trying to get the right out of the situation that I was in. And I turned my back on her and I walked to the door. And that's when she spoke up. But I can help you with that. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Um, so what I'm saying is, you parents out there, you people out there that have a real passion or heartfelt connection to mental health, is that help can be right there. You know, you just gotta try and interpret and read the signs, because a lot of us are trapped inside our own minds. And if you're not reading the signs outside of you, then a lot of what's happening in the world is just washing straight over the top of your head, and you're not really absorbing anything in front of you. And that's where the danger is. I guess that's where you're missing your children. You were too tied up in a phone conversation to notice that your child was playing with a lighter, burnt themselves, got curious about how the flame burnt themselves and kept burning themselves. All of that just went by, you missed it. Maybe they were peeling an apple one day and they cut their finger and what's that red stuff that come out of me? Is there more of it? Do I need to cut myself like that again to find out if there is? You know? Why did that stuff come out of my nose? All of these little signs that you could be missing, that questions that kids come to you and ask you. If you're too busy and you go, look, I'm talking to your auntie right now. And it was right at that moment that you needed to put your auntie to the side and say, "Can I just answer my child's question?" That seems really important. It's not like my child to butt in and interfere like that. They know better than that. It's restructuring your mind and time. My father was a good one for saying, "Look, just turn the page and get on with it. Start a new page." I've had some harsh advice in my life, but a lot of the times when I heard it or was said to me, I took it with my mouth closed. It went in, it sunk in. It stayed there, didn't come out my mouth with some smart comment or remark. We're all different. Read the play. It's like a field sport, rugby, soccer, rugby league. You know, everything is action happening right now. You've got to read the play, you've got to read the tempo, you've got to read the game as it's happening. You can't put it off and get to the end of the game and stand in there and say, "Well, what happened there, guys?" Too late. Game over. So I'd like my post to become a little bit more light-hearted as comes along. I don't want to be this, "I'm depressed, bro, can you help me out? I'm thinking about killing myself" type of shoulder to cry on, bro. I'm not going to be that person for you, man. You hear me right now? You got any intentions of calling out to me, crying out to me, saying, "Bro, I'm thinking about killing myself. Can you help me?" These are the one things that I've got to say to you. Go to the doctor. That's what I did. I went to the doctor and I said to the doctor, "I'm stressed out." He said, "No more work for you. You're on the sickness benefit. Go and see this doctor." Went to the doctor. "You've got bipolar affective disorder. This is your medication." The rest has been a recovery journey. I did that. I went and got help. I didn't sign up on some Facebook page or help me page or YouTube page. "Help me, I'm crying, I'm going to kill myself." That's not me. I'm the patient. I'm not the doctor. Go and see the doctor. But yeah, I hope eventually things will become more lighthearted. You'll see more of the activities that I get into to keep myself occupied. I understand that old people, when they retire, that it's not an easy thing to do. Half of it because they've been working that time that they've now got to spend at home by themselves during the day, and the other half is because they can't do the fun activities that they now got time for to do with the people they want to do it with. Because those people are different, various mixed ages, that some of them, a lot of them are still working. A lot of them are doing their own activities. So it really is a force of issue to find a lot of things to occupy your time with. And I've got all my artwork, I've got my art machines, I've got my gaming machines, I've got my fishing, I've got my hunting. I've worked as a butcher, so I can break down beef, I can break down mutton, I can break down pigs, I can slaughter them, gut them. I know how to identify diseases just because I've been in the industry. Those are all things that I love to do. I know how to set nets, fishing. So it's a love of mine. I love fishing. I love watching fishing. But yeah, It's pretty much basically what it was all about, is occupying your time effectively so that you enjoy what you do, no matter what you're doing. And don't do anything that you don't enjoy doing. For the life of me. If you don't like doing it, don't do it. Anyhow, I'll leave you on that note. I have love in my heart. I'm not going to say I love you. I'm not going to say Merry Christmas or whatever. Happy feelings, love, happy joy. All I want you to know about me is I have love in my heart. And I strive to get through the day and be the best that I can be. I hope you enjoyed watching. This is my first post of many. Just gives you a background of what and who I am. My name is Isaac Tumanako Crawford. In Hebrew, Isaac means laughter. Laughter in Māori means kata kata. Tumanako means hope. And Crawford is of Scottish origin, and it is a place to cross the river. A ford is a place in the river. A Crawford is a place to cross the river. There are other types of fords. There are Bedfords, there are Welfords, there are Wolfords. All, I guess, have to do with something or some place along the river. So my full name meaning is Laughter Hope Across the Ford. Isaac Tumanako Crawford. I offer you peace. Peace I give you.